Welcome to season 2 of the Girl Crush podcast with me, Donna Pesci. I created this podcast to encourage, inspire, and empower women to dream big and live with purpose, passion, and joy. On today's episode, I am lucky enough to have Caryn Johnson, co-founder and CEO of the innovative reproductive wellness company, Bond. If you're a woman and you haven't heard of Bond, you are going to be really happy that you found this episode. Caryn was driven to create this company by her own personal journey with autoimmune infertility. Her professional background is so impressive, and her personal story is both moving and inspirational. Here's my chat with Caryn Johnson. Hi, Caryn. Welcome to the Girl Crush podcast.
Hi, Donna. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you. I just love your story because it seems to really come from a place of personal struggle. And I think a lot of people are going to resonate with what you've gone through and then be so excited for what you have built. I want to really start at the beginning of your career. And I read somewhere that you were a dancer, or you wanted to be a dancer.
It is true. And it's so fun to talk about. I grew up in New Jersey, where I lived in New Jersey was about 30 minutes outside of Manhattan. So I was from an early age really entrenched into dance, particularly ballet, and really thought that I was going to grow up and be kind of like a prima ballerina. It's all I really aspired to. But when it came down to it, at the end of high school, my father, who's been, a huge role model in my life from a business sense, really pushed me to go to college. So I ended up going to the University of Illinois to participate in their dance program. And when I got there, I realized that I had a lot of other areas of talent, including a lot of opening of my heart and mind into areas that I didn't think I was talented in, into classes that I didn't think I could excel at. And my sophomore year, I switched from dance to journalism. And that's really when I started learning about the world of marketing, so to say. I still dance to this day, though. I take a class in Chicago at Common Language, which is like a trampoline dance workout. And It's just been a huge part of my life. It's, taught discipline and a true love for something, and really helped me with a lot of my health issues that I came into having, and being able to use my body to help with some of those health issues. So that's my dancer journey.
I love that. And actually, I have to say, you look like a dancer. I don't know exactly how to articulate that, but you do look like a dancer. Like you remind me of one.
Since everyone can't see me, it's because I have a very long neck.
Well, this will be on YouTube, so some people might be able to see you. But yes, you do. You have a very graceful look about you. I think that's what it is.
Thank you.
So then, obviously, when you graduated college, did you decide to pursue journalism?
So I graduated college with a degree in journalism, and I really, at that point, wanted to expand into more of a marketing role. I didn't see myself in the broadcast journalism space, which is where I took most of my classwork. And I really wanted to be more of a behind the scenes. So again, my father, who is a big part of my life still, really pushed me into thinking from a larger sense about marketing as a whole, and gave me a really good piece of advice, which was, if you can write well and communicate verbally with others, you literally can do anything you want. And so he pushed me into publicity after college, which was where I kind of started out. I was able to intern for him during college. He was at that time a vice president at Babies R Us. So my first internships were at Toys R Us, Babies R Us. And then after college, I went to an agency in Chicago. And this was right during the crisis, 2008. So no one was getting jobs. I went to Weber Shandwick, which is a PR agency here in Chicago. I did an internship there, and then I was hired at another boutique agency here in Chicago to do more fashion and beauty PR. And that's where I really built up my expertise in a variety of, different marketing tactics, working with beauty, fashion, local lifestyle clients. And from there, I was recruited to work in-house at a skincare brand called Indie Lee.
Love Indie
And
Lee.
yeah, she's so great.
I
And
love
she
that
has
brand.
such a special story and mission too. The brand's wonderful. I was their first marketer there. So when you're the first marketer of anything, it's trial by fire. I had an opportunity to really teach myself a lot of tools and again, build a brand that was at the time, almost brand new. So that was awesome. And then from there, I was recruited early on in the growth of Vital Proteins. So Vital Proteins is the collagen company, the Blue Tub collagen company. And I went over there to Vital after meeting Kurt Seidensticker, who's the founder of Vital Proteins, kind of on a whim. But I took a chance and went to Vital Proteins when very early days, very low revenue, but I really saw an opportunity for ingestible nutrition to move into the beauty space. So I wanted to pursue that.
I
I
want to talk
started,
about, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to
yeah,
interrupt
no,
you,
I'll
but
go on and
I do,
on.
no, I do want to talk about, Vital Proteins for a minute, because I feel like they kind of, burst onto the scene, and they were almost like created their own category in the wellness
Yeah.
and beauty space. And so it's interesting to talk to you about this, because you were kind of the catalyst for that. You were in their marketing department very early on.
Yeah.
So how did you just happen to meet the founder, and you guys hit it off, and that's the way that you ended up working for them?
Well, I saw the company and I applied for a position, and then many months later, he just called me out of the blue. And he is a really unique man. He was an aerospace engineer before Vital Proteins. So
Wow.
just the intelligence that comes out of him, when you speak one on one, I was so interested in everything that he was building. I really felt that entrepreneurial spirit from him. When I got to Vital Proteins, though, it was him and two other men running the company with him. And so essentially, I was again the first marketer there to really take hold of the marketing and grow it. And so that's what I did. I just built day over day on top of what I did the day previously, and carried myself as the leader of the marketing program up to becoming their CMO, and then selling off the company to Nestle Health Sciences in 2020. So it was an absolute ride of a lifetime. It was magic almost, just being part of that and being, um, like you said, a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
And now I feel like it taught me everything I needed in order to be in the position I am in today. So it was a beautiful, beautiful journey. But I will say one more thing on the collagen front. When I got there, collagen was really being used as almost in the super wellness community, like the bone brothers who were making
Mm-hmm.
their own broths with it at the time, and this was 2016, recipe bloggers were really, really big, and they were doing like very intricate recipes and adding in supplements like collagen. But it was very almost granola wellness health focused.
Sure.
And we really listened to the consumer right away, because what the consumer was saying, was in 2 weeks, my nails were super strong. I went to the hairstylist because, 4 weeks after my last dye job, because my hair grew so fast. I don't have the issues in my stomach that I used to have. Like all of these, like more like beauty centric
Mm-hmm.
kind of learnings came out of the brand. And that's where we were really able to see it as a brand for women and a brand that we wanted to carry forward to that hair, skin, and nails kind of conversation, which really made it blossom into the brand that it became. So, just an interesting kind of quip to share on Vital for you there.
That's such a that was such a huge undertaking that you took on at presumably pretty young age as well. You'd obviously had some experience in marketing and had worked, with different brands, but what you did there is pretty incredible. So I don't want to like gloss over that. And I don't even think that we are glossing over that, because I think anybody who's listening knows what Vital Proteins is. And just that's kind of a testament to what you did and how you grew that brand. So I think that that's really amazing. And coming from, my husband and I have a skincare line
Mhm.
as well. And we are not marketers ourselves, and we're trying to kind of figure that out. So I can say I know what you were kind of up against, and especially as a startup, and to grow it the way that you did is really incredible. So you must have had kind of a small-ish team, because when you started, it was just a few people at the
Yeah.
company,
So
correct?
Yeah, so I started in February. I was able to hire a couple of people pretty early on that were essential to the growth. And, by the time we sold in 2020, the marketing team was at 65. So I just kind of
Wow.
took each segment of growth and pushed it a little further and then made sure that I was growing with the company, because I think that's really important. I had to grow my own expertise, my own knowledge, my own leadership qualities while I was going through this journey myself. I didn't arrive with those. So, it was exciting year over year to continue to be the leader of that organization, as the growth continued, because we were able to accomplish so much. And me coming in not from a corporate experience, from a corporation, but more from a startup, startup PR, a startup skincare, allowed us to be entrepreneurial in our marketing efforts, where right away we were listening to the consumer and making really relevant choices in how to market versus over strategizing, for 2 years and, creating a lot of systems and processes that held us from getting in front of our consumers right away. So that was a big piece of it.
That's amazing. So during your time at Vital Proteins, you were kind of going through your own personal struggles as well with infertility.
Yes,
Talk to
yes.
me about how that started.
Sure. So before I started at Vital, I had gotten married. My husband and I got married pretty young, which, we're so lucky in that regard. And right away, I just had this feeling that I was going to run into trouble in the world of, infertility. It was kind of just like a knowing in my body. I don't know if I created that or if it was just there, but we did the year of trying naturally, followed, the United States protocol of, then calling the OBGYN, getting the test done. Everything worked really well in my reproductive system as well as my husband's. Moved into IUIs, did 4 IUIs that grew wonderful, beautiful eggs for, but didn't result in any pregnancies. And then moved into IVF from there. And at that point, did an amazing egg retrieval. They pulled over 30 eggs out of me, which is a very high number
Wow.
and borderline too high of a number, but they, my reproductive organs were working really well. So when we started going into the implantations for IVF after we collected the eggs and made embryos, those started resulting in pregnancy, but the pregnancies were failing. And that's when I knew there was something going on in my body that wasn't related to my reproductive system, but was causing my reproductive system to not function correctly.
So when
And
you were going through that,
Mhm.
um, because I know that a lot of people a lot of people do go through that. And you're saying, I knew that there was something else that was going on, something else that was wrong. What were you being told by the doctors that you were working with? Because I know that a lot of people that are going through this, they're at the mercy of what their doctors are telling them, right?
Right.
And so I don't think that there's a lot of let's look at the whole system.
Yeah.
Let's look at the whole body.
I feel like when you get into OBGYNs and then reproductive endocrinologists or the doctors that do IVF, IUIs, etc., they are so specialized in your reproductive system that they haven't been educated, they haven't gone to school to understand your immune system, your microbiome, your, even pieces of your endocrine system that controls your hormone levels. So you're really looking at one piece of your body with them. And what I was going through at the time was a lot of issues within what is the microbiome, which at the time I didn't know. There wasn't a lot of research. I mean, there wasn't a lot of discussion around gut health, 7 or 8 years ago, which thank goodness there has been. But I would wake up every morning with almost shooting pains in my stomach. So I knew something was wrong with something, but I couldn't get naturopaths to figure it out for me either.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting as far as like getting a panel done for food sensitivities. I came back with over 200 sensitivities.
Wow.
Which is today, in today's world, if that happens to you, you have a leaky gut and people try to help you fix that. But
Mm-hmm.
at that point, it was just kind of like, oh, no, your body is different. You have a bunch of sensitivities. Like, yeah, you should probably avoid these things, but there wasn't necessarily a diagnosis or a treatment or an understanding of what to do next. So at that point, I started doing my own research. I started on message boards, really, which is what a lot of women do. But I
Mm-hmm.
ended up coming across a book called Is My Body Baby Friendly? It's written by Dr. Alan Beer, who's now deceased. But I read the book front to back. It's 700 to 800 pages. It's all science on how the immune system impacts reproductive health and the different mechanisms that have to go right in your immune system in order for fertility and pregnancy to occur, and for that pregnancy to not only occur, but for it to be sustained. And that's when I realized there was an underlying issue potentially happening in my immune system that was causing the distress on my reproductive system and preventing me from keeping those pregnancies.
Wow. So at this point, you had a few lost pregnancies at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
So you kind of went out and did this on your own, did this research, said something's wrong. I'm not getting the answers that I want.
Right.
I'm going to go out and find the answers on my own, which I can relate to because I did that. I have uh, I had endometrial cancer and I
Oh
have
my.
Hashimoto's,
Mm.
which has been such a journey for me. And so what you're saying about kind of having to go out and do that research on your own, I get it.
Yeah.
I had to go down those rabbit holes myself and really kind of come up with answers to seek out the right people to be able to help me. So
Yeah.
through your journey and your really self-educating educating
Mhm.
yourself on these issues, did that lead you to the right people to help
Yes.
you? Okay.
So the end of the book, there were at the time 3 recommendations of other doctors who practice reproductive immunology, which is the field now we're talking about. And one of those doctors, Dr. Joanne Kwok Kim, is located just about 45 minutes from where I live in Vernon Hills, Illinois. So I pursued trying to get into her office. I got on a 6-month wait list just to meet her because she is one of the only doctors that's practicing this form of treatment, medicine, etc. So I pursued at the same time going through another IVF transfer while I was trying to get into her clinic, just because I didn't really know if what I was reading could be trusted. Because at the time, the rest of my doctors were saying, like, this isn't research, there's no proof, you should
Sure.
keep trying, this is bad odds. And they were kind of talking me almost out of advocating for myself in that area. So I was at the same time getting ready for my next round of IVF, starting hormone injections, the whole work of it. And I got a call from Rosalind Franklin, the doctor, the immunologist, saying there was a cancellation and you can get in if you come tomorrow at XY time. So I went in the next day. I was 1 week away from doing the implantation. They did a 2-hour ultrasound on my entire body. They did so much blood work, full panels, panels, hormone panels, everything. And I left there just kind of wondering what was going to come out of it. They called 48 hours later and said, you need to cancel your transfer. You have the
Wow.
highest level of antibodies that we can even chart. Your immune system is essentially hyperactive. So I was still really confused. I didn't have like a guiding light. I didn't know these people that well. I had read a book by a man who was deceased. All of my other doctors were saying, forget it, just keep trying. Eventually it'll work out for you. And so I pursued the IVF implantation and decided to stick with my plan, which was to put both a boy and girl embryo in for that round. They started me on a treatment protocol to help support my decision. So I was on what is called IVIG, which are blood infusions. So it
Was this,
basically,
so were you working, sorry to interrupt you. So were you working with the other doctor as well? What was this at this point you put these two doctors together,
yeah.
or you
So
were
I
working with
layered
both
the
of them?
reproductive immunologist on top of my IVF doctor and protocol. So I followed everything that the IVF doctor was asking for in terms of
Okay.
medication, timeline, plan. But then I used the reproductive immunology center to support my immune system. They also gave me weekly ultrasounds, so they were able to monitor my eventual pregnancy in a really thoughtful, intricate way, where we'll talk about it, but a lot of loss and thinking has to go around autoimmune pregnancies because there's so many more complications. So essentially, I had two teams of doctors that were supporting me on the path to pregnancy.
And did you feel like that was a cooperative relationship? Were they talking to each other?
No, they didn't talk to each other.
That's
And I wonder if they would now in 2024, how that would go. I
Hmm.
hope they would talk to each other now. Just seeing 7 years of development in reproductive immunology and it being so important for a lot of women to understand why they can't get pregnant. It would make sense, but yeah, they truly treated kind of individually the two arenas of my body, so to say.
So you were working with both of these doctors. You
Yes.
did get the implantation.
Yeah. So I started doing the blood infusions right before the implantation. I ended up getting pregnant right away. The line was super strong. We knew that both embryos had implanted. By week 5, we could see both of them. And the treatment protocol was for the first time keeping me pregnant. So I realized like all of this was for a reason. But unfortunately, at 7 weeks, we lost our little daughter. Her heart stopped beating, which is one of the sad side effects of your immune system kind of taking over. And at that point, my son still had a heartbeat that was very strong, but we weren't sure if the loss of my daughter was so there's two things that can happen when you lose a twin in pregnancy. The twin can either come out and basically, you miscarry the twin out, or it's what's called a vanishing twin, which means that your body reabsorbs the embryo and the embryo doesn't actually come out of your body. So we just prayed that she didn't actually come out, because she would have taken my son with her.
Wow.
And I continued on the immune protocol. Both sets of doctors didn't think that I would end up with a healthy living child. I had a very scary pregnancy for the rest of the time with my son, where I spent most of it on bed rest.
Wow.
Just because I had also grown hematomas around his sac. Which are detrimental to pregnancy if they become too large or cut off blood flow. So
that must have been so scary to go through. I mean, just terrifying to know that that's what you were up against. And so how long were you essentially on bed rest?
Pretty much on bed rest the entire pregnancy.
Wow.
They let me loosen up around week 30. But the concern was always there. And it was a different pregnancy than a lot of people have. I wasn't celebrating. I hid it most of the time because I didn't want to tell people and then have to come back and tell them that I lost the baby.
Yeah.
There weren't baby showers. There wasn't a big nursery set up. We were really scared and fearful.
Yeah.
Which is sad to think about now, because I wish that I hadn't let my mindset be like that. But yeah.
Well, it sounds like you were doing what you had to do mentally to mentally survive it. Which I can't imagine, going through that. But it obviously just sounds like you had to be strong for yourself, and that was the way that you were
I had to be
able
strong
to go
for my
through
son,
it.
who is still in my body,
Wow. Yeah.
So it's like you have to balance like mourning and loss, but also not be totally overcome by them, because you still have something that, you're trying to live for. Like you're trying to help the other baby grow. It's a very odd emotional experience. It really,
I can't even imagine going through that. It's a loss, but there's hope, and you want to, remain positive for that hope that, that's something that your son is going to be born. It seems sad that you didn't get to go through the pregnancy of, that normal people get to, not normal people, but that normal pregnancies get to go through, and the celebration and the exciting parts of it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that it went that way, but continue and tell me what happened then.
Thanks for saying that. And at 34 weeks, I was eating nachos on my couch and my water broke out of the blue. My water broke, and I'm going to give you extra details here because I think it's important. My water broke and it was all blood. So it was an emergency situation. We called 911. I thought I was losing my son. I had an at-home Doppler that I somewhere in my mind went to grab to see if he still had a heartbeat.
Wow.
He did. So the ambulance was on its way. We were on the phone with 911 and they were saying, okay, but the ambulance is taking you to the nearest hospital, which wasn't Northwestern, which is where I really needed to be treated, because I can't, at this point in my journey, I couldn't go to a random place and expect them to really be able to help me.
Absolutely.
So my husband drove me like a crime scene, literally a murder scene, to Northwestern, into triage, where they take, people who are in labor, and they did an ultrasound and they said, oh yeah, you're going to give birth today. And so yeah, just another oddity of having an autoimmune pregnancy. When inflammation rises too much, too fast, it can actually break your water or break your bag. And that's what had happened to me. So my son delivered at 35 weeks and he was completely healthy, didn't have to stay in the NICU for 1 minute. So
wow.
It just, it was a beautiful miracle. I had a healthy baby in my arms. It was a dream come true.
Wow.
So yeah, that was the story of the birth of Elijah, who is 6 years old now and at bike camp today.
Oh my God. I love it. I love hearing that. Congratulations on that. I'm so
Thank you.
happy that after all of that, that you were able to have that outcome.
I wish they had told me, like, for everyone listening, like when you go into labor, it can be blood. It's not just the water from, your bag.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just didn't feel prepared for like any of these situations that I found myself in. And I feel like if like we were a touch more educated in these areas, like it would reduce a lot of fear and anxiety in those types of like 911 moments. But ultimately, I just feel so grateful. I got to carry him. I got to feel what it was like to have a baby kick in my belly. Yes, it was the most stressful time of my life, but I am really proud of myself and my body for being able to do that.
I'm proud of you too. And I'm proud of you that you were probably more educated at this point than most people were. And so to hear you say, like, I wish that I would have known this and I wish that I would have known that, it's like, it just kind of goes to show you that you can do all the research in the world and you still, you still need help. You still, and I think what you are getting towards and what you're trying to create, even with your new company, which we're going to talk about, it's trying to give people that education and give people that
Definitely
that knowledge,
resource. Yeah.
And that resource. Thank you.
We can't expect everyone to be able to like almost fit the puzzle pieces together like I was for myself. It's too much. And like, I think like the ultimate piece is I was able to listen to myself, like to find the understanding for me. And it would have been so much easier if I had just had a guide or a doctor that like really understood, that could help me through the different steps, or even give me the idea in my head that it might be autoimmune or that the two things are related.
Well, I have never heard of an autoimmune. Is it called an autoimmune pregnancy?
Did you know you had Hashimoto's when you had your daughter?
I did not.
And did you have an easy time or?
No, she was 3 pounds, 3 ounces when she was born. She was in the NICU for a month, almost 5 weeks. I had preeclampsia. I had all kinds of issues. I was sick my whole pregnancy. I was, 24 at the time, and I was a 24 that didn't know anything about pregnancy. I mean, I just didn't. Yeah. I was just at that point in my life, I pretty much just did what the doctor told me, took my prenatal vitamins, and like that was it. There was nothing else. There was no talk about nutrition. There was no talk about really anything, or any risk factors or anything. And I didn't know, what I was up against at that point. So, yes, looking back all those years ago, 28 years, 27, 28 years now, there's a lot of things obviously that I would have done differently. And there's probably, in all fairness to the medical community, a lot of things that they probably would have seen or known to look for. And now my daughter just gave birth to her own daughter, my granddaughter. Right. And it's funny because her pregnancy, it was so different. She was so educated and knew so much. And she's a very healthy person in every way before this, even before this. So then throughout her pregnancy, but she knew so much about what was going on with her body. And I didn't at that point. I didn't have anyone around me that really talked about that or that thought about it. And so,
It's
it was just a completely different experience.
It's different levels of consciousness, right? Like when you had your daughter, there was an awareness.
Yes.
Like there
True.
is now, and there is some good support out there now. But I think that, when you look statistically at it, 1 out of 4 will have trouble getting pregnant. And then of that, 35% of those people won't have any idea why they can't get pregnant. So they'll leave with a diagnosis of unexplained infertility, which isn't a diagnosis, right? It's a description of where you're at. And when you dig deeper into the research, like I did, you find out that of that 35%, over 60% of them have major vitamin deficiencies, vitamin B, vitamin D. Over 55% of them have an issue with their autoimmunity. Right there, research. And then again, over 50% of them have an issue in their metabolic systems, their blood sugar. That's where you run into PCOS, insulin levels and blood sugar. And it's right there. The data is there now where we can all look at these things and then say, okay, it's not working for you. Take a look at your vitamin levels. Take a look at your immune system. Take a look at, your blood sugar, your hormone levels, and your metabolics, and try to dig deeper there, because it doesn't necessarily have to stop at that, hitting the bottom of unexplained infertility. There's so much underground below that now that women can find support on and find answers with.
Well, and I thank you for saying all of that, because I think just that information itself, for people that are listening that may be going through this, or maybe, hoping to get pregnant in the future, I think that just that information, knowing that that information is out there and readily available, is going to be new information to people,
right? Yeah.
Because like you said, you get told it's unexplained, and that's not it's not a diagnosis. And you really do need to dig deeper. And I think people need to know that they can advocate for themselves. And if you're not necessarily happy with what the doctor, what your doctor is saying, and I don't mean to, say to be negative about the medical community, but they only know what they know. Right. They're not,
just like
they're
you
not
only
studying.
know what you know, and I only know what I know. It's not a criticism. It's just an awareness. Right.
Right. So what kind of advice would you give to somebody that, is maybe going through this right now and doesn't know where to start?
Yeah. So my best advice is to, if you truly don't have answers, start with blood work and start with testing your body and your immune system and your hormone levels, etc., so that you can start to see if there's anything data-wise that isn't working in your favor against you, or for you. That's where you can also test your vitamin levels. So there are companies now, obviously doctors' offices, immune clinics, specialists, there are more and more of them every day, but there are also companies like Pregmune, which is an online service where they'll send you a kit and test all of your immune levels as it relates to your fertility. So you can kind of build some of the awareness on your own if you don't feel like your medical team is supporting you and where your head is at with what you think is going on with your body. But ultimately, what I want everyone's major takeaway to be is that you need to listen to yourself first and use everybody else as opinions, but keeping yourself as your main guide, because all of these other people are going to come in with opinions, come in with a perspective that you need to think about within your own body and your own mind. And those people aren't the end all be all. They're just a piece to what makes sense for you. So it's almost switching your perspective on how you look at doctors and medical professionals still with the utmost respect, right? Still getting their opinion, working with them, having a great partnership with them, but kind of distilling all of that information within yourself and making sure that you're the true leader of your fertility journey, because you're going to be the one that guides yourself there.
That is such amazing, great advice. And I hope that everyone that's listening takes that into account and feels empowered to advocate for themselves, because in any medical situation, it's a scary place to be. You don't feel like you know anything. You don't feel like you have almost the right to question medical professionals. And I think that really has to change. And I love that your story is basically about taking, empowering yourself and advocating for yourself and finding the answers. And this is what feels right to me. Right. And it should always feel like the right thing to do. You should never, I think, go into, even working with a doctor that you don't feel a good connection with, and that you don't feel like you're being heard. So I love that advice. So thank you for sharing that. So tell me about how you continued on your journey after your son.
So when Elijah was 1 year old, we decided that we wanted to try again. We were very passionate about having another child, having a sibling for him. It's not for everybody, but we really just felt that in our hearts. So I decided this time I would pursue getting my immune system in alignment before we went through the process of IVF. So I went back to the immune clinic, spent about 6 months getting my immune system to a baseline, and then moved forward with a round of IVF, implanted a female embryo, got pregnant right away. The pregnancy was rocky really from the beginning. I, again, had hematomas around her sac. So for the first 7 weeks, the hematoma was about 5x the size of the embryo, which is very scary odds, because when you get a blood clot or hematoma that is inside of your uterus, really when you're outside of the scare zone is when the baby's larger than it, meaning that if it decides to burst, come out, etc., it won't really take the baby with it. But I was immediately put on bed rest. So I was on bed rest by 5 weeks. At that point, I was doing a photo shoot with Jennifer Aniston at the same time for Vital Protein. Gosh. So it was like the world's craziest storm.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a very complicated pregnancy from the beginning. And what ended up happening was at 13 weeks, right when you're a little bit more in the clear, my water ended up breaking again. I went into labor and went back to Northwestern to triage. At first they said, "Oh, you're peeing your pants probably." I really wanted to kill someone when they said that. Gosh. But then they took me back. They did an ultrasound. My bag had broken. My daughter still had a heartbeat. But because I was only 13 weeks, there was no way to sustain her life without the fluids. And so I ended up losing her the next day. And it was obviously really, really sad and traumatic. And, you plan a life with these children that you're carrying inside of you.
Yeah.
But it was, coming home from Northwestern without her, kind of a turning point, and just me saying, I'm kind of throwing my hands up. I'm going to stop trying to control this situation. I'm going to get my mental health back and feel joy every day, spending time with my husband and my son, and I'll figure it out from there. And we sold Vital Proteins 5 months later. Wow. It was incredible. Just the whole process of that. And I decided at that point that my mental health still wasn't strong enough, and pursued surrogacy. ended up finding an agency and a surrogate in Iowa. So my surrogate actually lives about 6 hours away from where I do.
Wow.
And went through the surrogacy, implanted another girl, female embryo in her. And my daughter, Ruth, was born in 2021. So
wow.
yeah, just kind of you're getting, the mixed bag of trauma and fertility, surrogacy. I feel like I've had like every experience under the sun, but I have my two beautiful, beautiful children here now. So
that
it was
is
all
wonderful.
worth it.
I'm so happy for you. I can't imagine going through having this career, this amazing career that you had, and going through this, very personal struggle at the same time. Doing a photo shoot with Jennifer Aniston for Vital Proteins, selling Vital Proteins. I mean, I can't imagine just even going through the work and the stress that must have been involved in that part of it, but then adding on, these personal struggles. So,
well, I've always been really self-aware, which has helped me because I knew right when my mental health started to go sideways, I could feel it. I could feel when I lost her, like just the depression. It's almost like you put on a blanket of depression that weighs you down. And I didn't have I got into therapy right away, but I wish I would have had some of the tools that I have now, like meditation, just some of the ways to bring my mindset kind of out of the negative because, I really struggled and I used Vital Proteins as an outlet to have some sort of like sanity break from my mental health almost. And just poured into that more and more, which probably at the time wasn't the right thing to do. I should have worked through everything then. I've had 4 years since that happened where I've done a lot of work on myself, but it just was it was hard. I didn't have a lot of the resources that I wish that I had. I did have people that were like family to me that I worked with at Vital Proteins who had grown the business with me for about 4.5 years at that point, who knew, everything that was happening to me. So I had a good community around me in that sense. And
that's important.
I survived.
Yeah. Oh, I think, the right thing to do is just whatever gets you through it. And if that was for you, kind of pouring yourself into your work, and maybe compartmentalizing things so that you can, continue to get up in the morning when you're facing all of this crazy stuff. Anyway, it takes a lot of strength. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was really like the feeling that my body failed a perfectly healthy child. Like that's what I had to work through for a really long time.
Wow.
Honestly, for like the first few months in my head, I was speaking to myself like, you're a murderer, but you just feel like such a failure because it's in your body. These women, who lose a genetic baby, it's still just as sad, but like there's a sense of knowing that like that baby really wasn't meant to be here, right? That baby had a genetic abnormality that, caused it to not be here. But my babies my daughter was perfectly on track for growth. Her heart rate was so strong. It was like everything was right with her. It was wrong with me. And I just, I share because I want other people to like understand feelings and emotions and what these things feel like. And, you just feel like a failure. So
thank you for sharing that. I think
what I had to work through.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine working through that. But isn't it crazy how we do these things to ourselves mentally and, kind of turn it around and blame ourselves? You were doing everything you possibly could to bring your daughter into this world, and you were taking care of yourself as much as you possibly could and doing more research, and you still had those thoughts. I'm getting like choked up for you right now just thinking. But it's It's a sad thing, and we do that. We do that to ourselves. We kind of turn it inward, and I think as women, it's just like something that happens to
it's
us.
a
And we
natural
always want to
response, right?
yeah, take responsibility for it, or assign blame to ourselves instead of. I'm sure now that you have some distance from it, do you look back and be like, because I'm like thinking back to that person, and I just want to give you a hug and say it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong in that situation. You did everything right.
Yeah, I've done I did a Hoffman process. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay.
Tell me.
It's a 1 week, almost like a mental health camp in California. It's amazing. A lot of celebrities do it, very successful business professionals. It helps you work through some of the things that are limiting you, and it's a very special week. You turn in your phone, you cannot contact anyone, there's no technology, but part of that process, they put you in more of a meditative state, and then you mentally go back to that hard time, and you kind of like hold yourself through it with compassion. So I've just gone through this like really like deep experience with myself where I went back to every minute of that miscarriage. I felt all of the feelings, and I just gave myself love and comfort over it. And like just being able to tell myself, no, you did everything you could. This
Yeah.
wasn't meant to be. And then like give myself the grace and the compassion has completely helped me, and, changed, some of my perspective on how I view that situation and how I view her spirit in heaven today.
Wow.
So,
That's incredible. And what was the name of
yeah,
it? The Hoffman?
it's called the Hoffman process.
Okay. The Hoffman process.
Everyone
I'm going to
should do
look
it.
that up.
It was
Everyone should look that up right now.
incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit. So
Mhm.
now you are at the point where you have your son and your daughter.
Yeah.
Is this then when you decided to pursue this company that you have built?
Yeah, so I left Vital Proteins after the acquisition with Nestle Health Science. I'm not a corporate girly. I'm not like, I can't sit on meetings all day. I'm like a builder. When I'm not building, I get antsy. So it wasn't the right place for me post acquisition.
Okay.
And I really started thinking about how I could use myself to help other people. And at that point, I was mostly thinking like from an advocacy perspective. And what I ended up doing was contacting one of the main researchers in reproductive immunology, Dr. Gilmore. He lives in Detroit, and he runs a facility at Wayne State University. And I reached out to him, just to see, what he had going on research wise, and just to share like how important his work was. And he ended up inviting me out to Detroit to speak in front of all of his researchers, just to share a story of someone who went through kind of the throes of, reproductive, having an issue with my immune system during pregnancy, because all these researchers that are doing the work for years and years and years, they don't even interact with us, right? Like they're doing the work so secularly off on their own. And so I went there, I did a full hour of just telling them my whole story, everything I went through. And then they toured me through their research facility. They showed me everything they were working on. They brought me into their laboratory where they were analyzing cells and, all sorts of things. And I just realized that everything that they're doing and everything that's being researched feels like it's about 10 to 15 years from actually hitting like the common consumer and the medical community.
Wow.
And that's when I was just like, there's no bridge. And these people are doing such important work that isn't actually translating, like maybe even in this man's lifetime, into really, really helping a lot of people. And that's when I sat back and said, I have all of this experience. I know everything about supplementation. I know product development. I know how to bring things to market, and I definitely know how to market, right? So why don't I distill this research into products, supplements that can actually help women with their bodies, whether it's fertility, whether it's hormone balance, whether it's PMS, but actually support the woman's body, give them supplements to help them with that, but also resources and education where they really feel like they can be in a community. They can have support. They can have an opinion that isn't, one doctor in one arena's opinion, but someone and a company that can support an evolution of women's health needs, essentially. So I concepted Bond, which is my brand for hormone health, and I launched it last October.
Amazing. That is such an incredible kind of full circle.
Yeah.
For kind of a full circle moment. And so talk to me about the products. Who should be looking at these products?
Yeah. So with Bond, I really hope to address all sorts of different female hormone reproductive needs. So each of the products fits kind of a problem area, and the line will continue to develop in that same vein as we move out into the rest of the year and into 2025. Right now, our best seller is Daily Balance, which is a drinkable multivitamin. It has 15 vitamins and nutrients, and all of those vitamins and nutrients have been studied for their support for hormone balance. So we built this formula together to piece in elements of hormone balance that women aren't getting in their daily multivitamin stack today. And what Daily Balance really is you can think of it kind of like athletic greens, but formulated for a woman's body, because it's a drinkable powder. So you're putting a tablespoon of this powder into 8 ounces of water. It tastes just like lemonade. It doesn't taste vitamin-y, but you're able to drink your vitamins instead of the equivalent, which would be 12 capsules. Wow. And, ingesting 12 capsules a day, which is what a lot of women are doing to help their bodies, but it's not a sustainable program that they're going to stay on, day in, day out, year after year after year, because pill sorting and ingesting 12 capsules just isn't what any of us want to do.
Right.
So Daily Balance is a drinkable, and I just love it for that reason, because you can get everything you need in your daily multivitamin in that drinkable formula. So it's really an all-in-one.
So is this something that all women of kind of all ages should be taking? Because I don't know that, I think it's starting to get better where women are being spoken to about hormone health, but I think a lot of times we're not really talking about hormone health until there's already a problem. So I think what you're doing is putting in place and giving somebody the resource and the vehicle to take care of their hormonal health before you get to that point.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And really what I want to do with Bond is help women as early as possible. I like to say, like, any woman with a period, right, is Daily Balance is for. Birth control users included. But really the thinking is, let's help women when they graduate college. Let's help women earlier and earlier and earlier, because if we help them now and we teach them how to live from a place of balance in their immune system and microbiome, they're not going to modulate out of those areas like my body did. They're going to be set up for more success when they want to open the door to conception. When they want to get into that place, they're not going to have those issues that so many women are so scared to have now, because they see everyone in their communities hitting infertility. So it really is a super proactive approach that we're trying to take here, and getting women to listen to their bodies, to understand their cycles and hormones, and to support them now, to learn that habit of supporting their female bodies now, so that when they want to make these big changes, when they want to go and have a child, when they move closer to menopause, their body is going to meet them there. It's not going to go against them.
Amazing. That is such a great feat, and so something that is so needed in this world right now. And again, I feel like this is almost a category creating product as well, because like I said, there's only, things that are on the market now are really about once you already have a problem, and you're looking for solutions.
A lot of the brands are really about pregnancy, and I just don't feel so. With Bond, I have 2 conception products. I have an egg quality product and I have a sperm product for men. I live and die by those products. I put so much research into them. I have over 300 clinicals logged of like how we built the ingredients to make sense to truly help people conceive. But those people, like you're saying, like, are already coming to me because they have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I envision a world where in 5 years, they aren't coming to me because they've taken care of their bodies and they're not hitting those problems. So I actually I'll serve the infertile community forever and ever and ever, but I actually want to serve women as young as I can get them so that they can keep their systems in alignment for themselves.
Yeah, to avoid those issues later. I love that. That's such a great mission of a company, and you come by it so personally. And I love when somebody can take something that they've gone through or a personal struggle, and you could have said, okay, I have my 2 kids now and I'm just going to go, on my merry way and do something else. And you really turned that around and said, I want to help other women. And I really commend you for that. I think it's amazing. And I love it. I love this whole story. So Bond was launched in October of last year.
Yes.
Okay. And so you have new products coming out all the time. You're obviously still working on many other things. What can we see next from Bond? Where do you want to take the company?
Sure. So right now I have 6 SKUs or 6 products, and I'm really going to stay in the realm of innovation here for at least the next 6 months because there are 4 or 5 different buckets that I really want to attack and help women in. The one I'm really excited about is menopause. I feel like that's been kind of the biggest wake up call for me as a brand owner. As soon as I launched Bond, the women coming out of the woodworks asking how I can support them with perimenopause and menopause has been truly shocking. It's women that you don't expect to be calling you up about menopause, young women. And I just, I'm very invested right now in formulating and finding solutions so that they can be supported through peri, which is when your hormones are chaotic, erratic. I mean, up, down, and then they start going down up until the point of menopause when the full period is lost. And, that lack of estrogen is so daunting and hard on women. So yeah, that's really what I'm excited about right now. Just truly finding the avenue to help peri and the menopause communities. And I think too, a little bit of the excitement around normalizing perimenopause for women, making them feel like their lives aren't over, but that if they help their bodies while they're in peri instead of ignoring it because they don't want to be classified as perimenopause, that they'll actually roll into menopause with more of a solid foundation and less of those side effects. So
that is so exciting.
Yeah.
And it's exciting for me personally. I'm going to have to ask you to come back and talk about this because this is this could be a whole other podcast. And I can tell you the story, the things that I've gone through, and the things that I'm still going through, looking for resources.
Well, so what they've said to me is menopause is when I'm dormant Hashimoto's and I'm dormant lupus. But they're saying menopause is when your immune system weakens and those autoimmune diseases flare. So I guess my question to you is like, did you see those flares? Like when you were going through it, did you notice like your immune system, you know, in an extraordinary way versus, you know, just the symptoms of menopause?
Yeah, I started going through menopause in my late 30s, which was crazy. And I went through it for a very long time. During that time is when I got my diagnosis of Hashimoto's. So I had, you know, perimenopause, menopause going on, and then the Hashimoto's. And then later, which was, I think, like 6 years ago now, wound up having endometrial cancer. So the combination of all of those things has been really crazy, and has the toll that it has taken on my, you know, just like daily life. Sometimes things
Your quality
wonderful.
of life, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes things are really great. And then, you know, you have a flare up of your Hashimoto's, and it gets really intense, and it gets where you feel like you can't like make it through the day without a nap, or your brain fog is so bad that you can't concentrate on something, you know, as simple as like reading a book.
Yeah.
And the weight gain or the weight, your body holding on to
it's
weight.
Like weight distribution, right?
The way that your body holds on to the weight. And I mean, my body specifically, because of all of these things, it's like, you know, I'm fighting against my body constantly. I think we should have a second
but it's, you're
conversation about this.
We absolutely should, but you're proving my point, which is that when you get into perimenopause, like the autoimmunity rears its head again. So when we're looking, we're talking about these people struggling with infertility. The same set of people is going to struggle with menopause, but they have no idea yet.
Yes.
There's also no education there. So it's like, it's all interconnected, right? It's like all hormone related.
Yes. And the amount of doctors that I mean, I think I went through 8 endocrinologists before I found the specialist that I'm working with now. But I cannot tell you how many doctors I went to. And, you know, when you're in your 30s and somebody says to you like, oh, I think it's, you know, it's perimenopause. And you're like, what? I'm in my 30s. What are you talking about? And the way that it's just, that's what's happening, you know? So it was like, you know, a little pat on the head and you'll be fine. And, you know, and then when you kind of, you have these symptoms and you have this weight gain and you have this bloat, you know, and I mean, I had a doctor, I was trying to, you know, tell him about all of these different things that were happening. And he was like, you know, you should maybe try to give up like white bread and like try to eat less carbs. And I was like, am I on candid camera? Like,
we have real fish to fry. The white bread ain't gonna cut it.
Plus, I'm like, I don't think I've eaten white bread since, you know, the 90s, but like, that's not even, you know, that's not even here nor there. So anyway, bringing it back, I am so happy that you are going to be going down that road.
I'll have you test. You'll get on the
test.
I'll put you on the testing group. Yeah.
Absolutely. Count me in.
Cool.
Count me in for sure.
Amazing.
This conversation has been so wonderful. I think you are so great and I love what you're doing. And I really want to thank you for sharing such a personal story. It really, you know, really hit me. And I think it's really going to resonate for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people that are listening are going to learn a lot. I have more things that I want to talk to you about, but I definitely think there's more conversations in our future, hopefully.
I do too. And thank you so much for having me. I try to stay really open still to helping women. So if anyone listening wants to reach out, please reach out on our Instagram _bondlife. And I'm still attuned to our Instagram and I'd be happy to DM with you there and, you know, help discuss where you're at and, you know, just help you and support you that way as well.
That is so kind. I love that. And also, people should look at your products online. It's bond.life. correct, is the website.
Yes.
So yes, definitely find you on social media. It's very kind of you to say that you will interact with people. I think that you'll definitely have people that have questions for you, and hopefully people will go to the website and check out your products. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Girl Crush podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on this episode and my guest. If you're enjoying this podcast, please hit the subscribe button. You can also leave me a comment about the episode. I create this show for you, and I would love to hear your feedback. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more information on upcoming topics, guests, and some other fun content. Thanks again for being here.